through, say, Diamond, you start to see sub 50% win rates. And then when you see the top end Legend, you start to see every single tick of win rate up about every 100 or few Legend points. It's really interesting to see this deck be considered high skill cap and still one of the most complicated decks. It's timeless, rogue with a bunch of combo pieces, all trying to fight for board with these giant swing turns. It's going to be a good one to watch. Let's go ahead and go into game number 2 where we're covering. Again, this is round 1 Swiss coverage. It's already happened, and we are trying to tie everything up as we finish up the Swiss round and move into round number 2. So this is after the fact. Luna is going to be on the coin and already has the efficient Octobot to start things off. But I think, you know, when you look at the rest of the hand, it's pretty reactive. It's not super powerful in terms of creating threats. So Luna's going to have to hope that her hand improves pretty dramatically in the next few turns here.
That's right, and that's kind of why I was a little skeptical of her keep. Like, the Octobot, absolutely. Pretty much every matchup is an insta-keep. But the Org Merchant obviously has synergy alongside that to instantly activate it, especially against Mage, which doesn't really play many minions of their own. But she didn't have much meat to go alongside that with Field Contact or Mancrick, Jandas, Kazakus. There's a lot of good cards that you want to try and hit. But quite clearly her game plan has worked out beautifully with the pickup of Field Contact, because now this hand is going turbo draw.
Yes, very much so. Thanks to Field Contact and the ability with cheap combos and battle cries in the deck with the discount of the efficient Octobot, I mean, there's just absolute crazy amount of card engine draw coming out from Rogue. However, there is a class that's also pretty good at that as well. Let's talk a little bit about Thund3r and Mage's position here. A little bit slow on the startup. No spell damage to really make those cram sessions sing. And from Thund3r's perspective, he's trying to do the exact same thing as Luna, try to gather resources and go for these big power turns. But I don't really feel like the power turns are coming anytime soon either. It seems like Thund3r's got a lot of things in the hand, but surprisingly a lack of plays.
Yeah, these are some of the most crucial turns to stop the Rogue in its tracks, because if they go for these early burst turns and they hit Cult Neophyte, for example, they can push absurd amounts of damage and then just close things out later on, as I was saying, with the Wicked Stabs as well. And with neither version of Incanter's Flow being found for Thund3r, he's definitely going to be tanking quite a bit in these early games before he can swing things back and actually start dealing some damage to get his own win con online.
Ooh, refreshing Spring Waters, a way to continue to draw deeper into the deck. You know, I was thinking about how Thund3r wants to handle this turn, given that, you know, you really want to deal with that Field Contact as soon as possible. But there's the only thing that he can really play to deal with it is Brain Freeze, which would disrupt his ability to play Mozaki, for example, on curve and try to win back the board, or at least start presenting things onto the board.
Yeah, Mozaki is an interesting proposition because I think in the end you do probably have to kill the Field Contact, but there's the idea that you can start playing around with of leaving it up on the board and trying to swing the board back next turn with this big ultimate swing from Mozaki. But the problem is, when they're drawing through their whole deck that quickly, they're very likely to find either Brain Freeze or more likely the Prize Plunderers to just swiftly deal with it, and then you're right back to square one.
And a little bit of a slight inefficiency in mana usage, but, you know, Thund3r wasn't exactly sure what minions would come out of the primordial studies. And mini mage is really problematic for Rogue to deal with. They don't really have many tools in their arsenal to be able to take down a stealth minion. Luna did draw one of them in the form of Kazakus. He could build a golem, have a 1-mana golem to try to take down that mini mage. And I feel like with Luna, when you see opponent with mage that play a turn 5 like that, it took a long time, played primordial studies, clearly trying to prioritize the spell damage. I'm curious if Luna would want to react to this, play Cult Neophyte, disrupt the spell. Is this the timing that she's looking for right now?
Yeah, I definitely think this is enough pressure on the board, because the way that Neophyte works in this matchup is if you can throw it down on turn 1 with the coin, then yeah, you disrupt the Incanter's Flow, and that's good. But generally, it's just an umbrella for the rest of your board, and you want to have a board that's worth protecting against all these big spells that the mage is likely to play. And while it's not like the most optimal time, because you're not going into turn 7, which is the big break point where Flame Strike and Mask of Cthulhu hit, it's still a way to just put some stats on the board, make it hard to answer, and then just beautifully curve into Jandas, Shadow Step, Jandas, Jandas. You just explode.
It's very true, right? Luna is considering, this turn play of what's her most power on board, but, how does the curve look for turn 6 onwards? It looks like Thunder's going to have to deal with a pair of 5 drops for the next few turns, indefinitely, and then maybe just die. But, with really good resources like devolving missiles and combustion, that is one way to deal with Jandice moving forward. Thunder's going to use it now to try and take apart the board. And this sets up for the Jandice.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world for Thunder because Mask of Cthulhu, aside from any insane outcomes on the Jandice, is a reasonable response. One of them obviously will be the illusion one, and if you're lucky, you can get a clear thereafter. But I think even bearing that in mind, it's still just the best play for Luna. She could disrupt the Mask of Cthulhu for a turn with Kazakus plus Neophyte. But again, as I was saying, if there's not that much attack on the board, Neophyte isn't worth it to go for it yet. You want to save it for when you do have that large attack value on the board.
2 Battlecry minions coming out of Jandice. Clearly, Luna would probably prioritize the weaker one, unless she's trying to go for the Mind Games. I didn't get to actually see which one was selected, Derek. Do we know?
No, I didn't see on that one. In the end, will not matter here as everything is just deleted anyway. But I was kind of surprised to not see the Shadow Step there, I have to be honest, on the Jandice. Her hand does still create pressure, obviously, with Kazakus, but it's slow. You have to set up for a turn with Kazakus if you want to take the 5-cost Golem. And so, on this turn, what could have been a 4-mana Jandice is instead just a Kazakus as a 3-3. It's a lot less impactful in the immediate.
Yeah, I guess my read on the situation is Luna is now prioritizing going for a 1-turn kill with the Octobot in hand, the ability to potentially activate it, 2 Shadow Steps, and the idea of maybe drawing cards with the Golem. But it does seem like Luna is prioritizing playing Tenmu here instead. So if she does go for that, then she will be trying to churn out the additional value. And maybe in her mind, the Kazakus is worth a lot more than just going for Jandice repeatedly.
Yeah, and I think this shows, in a sense, good understanding, because if you end with Shadow Step on the Tenwu here, having a 0-mana Tenwu in your hand is one of the most powerful things you can do in the deck, make no mistake. But given that she had 2 Shadow Steps in hand, I would still, I think, like to have seen a bit more prioritization on the development of Jandice. But overall, the fact that she is ending up with Shadow Step on Tenwu here, this part of the turn, I absolutely adore, because it allows the Golems to be played twice in a turn for their strong Battlecry effect, or as soon as Alex Straza is found, just 16 burst from hand without having to reduce anything with the Octobot.
Also true. What can Thunder really do? Pressure. There's a lot of damage in the hand in the form of the Apexis Blast and the Fireball. Oh my goodness. An ability to even add additional damage. Thunder, how much damage is this? 5, 3 plus the Fireball, 7. It's pretty close to lethal here for Thunder if everything can survive and Luna does not have the ability to respond. This is very close.
It's definitely getting scary on both sides. Like, Thunder might feel safe at 28, but he has to know with Tenwu for 0 in hand, you cannot rest on your laurels here. The damage comes in very, very fast.
Absolutely. Not to mention the fact that Luna has a discount hand now. And Tenwu's in the hand. This starts to become very scary. Looks like Greater Goal number 2. Frenzy does not activate on a minion that's really impactful, so that was a very good outcome for Luna. And now Luna has handled the board state. Thunder back to the drawing board.
Choose soon.
Thinking about breakpoints with going for another Neophyte here. Again, Flame Strike will still be playable, so instead she's bouncing it back and saving it in hand. Interesting. Luna consistently taking these lines that are much lower tempo, instead trying to prioritize tricks and setting up for stronger later turns. It's very different from the way that I would play this rogue, but it definitely has its merits. It means that she can create multiple awkward turns for her opponent at the expense of immediate pressure.
Yeah, I like where her head's at, because if you think about it, Thunder has been struggling to deal with the board, and has been trying to present things proactively. And I think Luna is trying to play more disruption. Thunder's been playing almost the right side of his hand for the most part of the game. Yeah. It feels like he's been holding these cards that might be like trying to wait for their opportune moment. So I like it. Thunder's going to instead just have to play the 3 manas and Canter's Flow. Perhaps that card it would be balanced now, but we shall see if Thunder has the secrets to deal with this. Luna immediately tests for Ice Barrier and things related to attacking the hero. Does not actually find anything just yet. Well, he's surely systematically trying to diffuse the secrets.
Yeah, working through those one by one. And I'm not sure what the Golem is here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Golem and then Secret Passage, or maybe Secret Passage first, because if it's summon a copy, then obviously you're running into big board space issues here instead. But it's quite clearly saying, if you don't have the Flame Strike, you are going to lose this game.
Yes. I mean, as the saying is, one in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. And I think in this case, Luna says, rather than waiting for all these combos with Tenmu and Shadow Step with Alex Strauza, present the threats and utilize the cult. Neophyte and Thunder, in a twist of irony, draws another Incanter's Flow for 3 mana, despite having played Incanter's Flow previous turn to discount it to 1 mana. Back exactly in the same position as before. Thunder has to use the Refreshing Spring Water to try to find something to try to impact the situation, but he's running out of mana crystals now, does not have Flame Strike.
Yeah, with the way it worked, he actually could have played Flame Strike if he'd drawn it there, so it was obviously the correct play to start with a very expensive Refreshing Spring Water. Didn't hit it, and with Runed Orb, the best you're looking at is Cone of Cold, which Luna has positioned pretty well around in order to stop most of the 5/5s being able to be frozen at once.
Runs out on me.
Evolving Missiles. It's unlikely that Thunder is going to find a way to completely deal with the board, but Evolving Missiles can help lower the power here. Just needs to hit a couple of those 5 attack minions. 3 onto 1. And as long as Luna sequences properly, that should be it. Oh my goodness.
Hoping now very much that it is Counterspell so that she can use the Wicked Stab.
Pretty funny interaction there, but I think Luna had almost certainty there. I think Oasis Ally was the only thing that might have been slightly confusing, as well as the Rig Fair game, but that's going to do it for game 2. Luna off to a commanding lead. Remember, this is Swiss round 1. If you're just tuning in halfway, we're still, getting everyone's round 1 scores in. This is the additional round coverage, and then we're going to go into round 2. You can head over to Battlefy to follow along with us with the bracket. But taking a look at that game, I think that was just a very interesting deviation from the normal line that a lot of tempo rogues like to go, Derek. And in the end, I really appreciate it, right? Because a lot of people think about the swing turn, but the swing turns from Luna, where she's consecutively building up this advantage and keeping this Cult Neophyte, which was played 5 times in the game. I mean, that's just incredible foresight from Luna.
Yeah, juggling the Neophytes turn after turn is a very key part of the matchup. I've not seen it done quite to the extent that Luna went for there, where, she was bouncing it back on the turn she played it and keeping it in hand. But again, it's a very interesting way to approach the matchup, and it does now leave us with this hilarious and very unfortunate outcome from Thunder in a 2-0 situation for Luna, with I believe her final remaining deck being the Mage, which very interestingly enough, I actually got some of Luna's thoughts prior to this tournament starting, where I was very much coming in thinking, right, Priest is the meta shaper here. It turned out to be the most brought single archetype in Control Priest. Everyone knows it's power based on ladder, based in Grandmasters. It's just ubiquitous. But Luna was actually saying that she thinks Mage is going to be the actual core of the metagame around which everything else has to warp. And so based on her having just Mage left over here, I have to imagine she's feeling in a pretty good spot against the rest of Thunder's lineup, with what is essentially a very standard build of the deck with Lunacy as the only kind of one inclusion that you can slot in or out.
Yep, kind of hard to to argue against someone who has the accolades that Luna does, as she queues up her own Spell Mage. Deck of Lunacy, a card that has been recently nerfed, yet still seeing play. It's meant for specific matchups. Compared to before, in the past, it just felt like Deck Lunacy was almost always a jam, but now that's 4 mana. Just be a little bit more careful with trying to rush it out as a priority because it is very expensive at some of the most crucial turns of the game. And if you don't really expect a lot of Hunter, it does seem like Hunter's dropping a little bit of popularity on ladder right now, just given its bad matchup against other popular decks. I think Mage might end up finding some breathing room as long as you just give it time. We know that Mage does have weakness to early game aggression, but Thund3r is not going to be doing that. He's queuing up his Mage once more, and that's a pretty good opening hand here for Thund3r.
This is the juice with Font of Power into Flow. Like, Font of Power is just a very good card in the matchup. You got to remember, as Luna hits the exact same starting hand on the other side, high pressure, mana reduction on both sides. This is major peak efficiency on both sides.
That's right. Coin Incanter's Flow. And then it cancels right back. Okay, we're off to the races here, Derek. Card draw is going to be a huge deciding factor of the resource war. But yeah, Luna going to be playing Font of Power just a little bit in a different sequence, almost getting similar minions in the form of Raz Frost Whisperer.
Yeah, kind of annoying actually with how it works out for Luna here. I was thinking that she would go for the Confection Cyclone, if I'm honest, there, to kind of get ahead on board, and it would have worked out a lot better against this Water Elemental, which now is awkward with how this Apexis Blast slots in. It's not so obvious how you sequence this turn.
Right. Could use Brain Freeze alongside with it, but is exactly what you described. It is awkward. I do want to ask, do you have an opinion on the deck of Lunacy? Oh, Luna's immediately hovering over it. And use the double Brain Freeze.
Damn.
Smash down this Water Elemental. Okay, so, I was thinking about it. Luna clearly thinks that there's a lot of value in being able to play the deck of Lunacy right here. What are your thoughts on this, Derek?
Well, you have to remember that in the Mage matchup, non-Deck of Lunacy version, even if you hit Deck of Lunacy, sometimes it's just better because you have a whole bunch of burn spells. There's more card draw in the deck, unless you hit the perfect outcomes off Deck of Lunacy to hit card draw. But Luna had just picked up Refreshing Spring Water, which, even when you get meme cards like that do absolutely nothing, does mean that you are likely to pick up some good options with the Refreshing Spring Water. I think it was fine to go for here because she's not in the best of positions anyway. She's behind on board and is likely to keep being that way. But having said that, she's already played Incanter's Flow, so it's not like she's hitting Nagrand Slam and the survival of the fittest. Instead, she is hitting cards that do literally nothing, with 2 out of the 3 options here being complete jokes.
Yes, and that is going to be a problem. The board pressure isn't mission critical right now, but it can easily get to that point. Love this combination.
Yeah.
Using Power Fusion on the Rusty Raider to set up a big board. Oh, but with spell damage in the form of Astromancer Solarian as well as the Primordial Studies, this can get spicy real quick. Egwin falls into the hand. +2 spell damage. Is the Steward Scrolls better, or perhaps even a cheaper option than Mini Mage so that you can squeeze out better plays on the board?
Yeah, I think that Egwin is a bit clunky because it means that you can't go for Egwin, Solarian, and Brain Freeze all at once. You'd have to miss out on the Brain Freeze, which does make me lean towards Steward, I would have to guess. Oh no, sorry, I'm wrong. He gets to play it all at once. So in that case, perfect. Get the maximum spell damage and the 5/5. It sounds good.
Yeah, it's a double discount, I think, from the first one, and then the second one we just watched being played. There is also this cute dynamic where Astromancer Solarian, if it dies first, can actually inherit the Egwin buff. Does shut off things like Font of Power. It's a very weird scenario where a lot of times you feel like Solarian Prime is actually a great card to have in your deck, but then Apexis Blast and Font of Power lose significant amount of their power level going into their next turns. So I wonder what Luna will do. Draws Devouring Plague. It looks like okay here.
Yeah.
Best.
It's essentially a brick, though. Like, hitting the Raz there 3 times is huge to be able to stem some of the damage that's coming through, but she needs card draw. It's very simple. If she doesn't hit that, she is going to lose.
That is also a deck of Chaos in the hand on the far right, which swaps health of minions with their attack, and believe it or not, that is completely useless in almost every spell mage deck ever. It is very rare to see that card ever have use.
One of
From
the
Thunder's perspective.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say one of the few options where it also is good with Solarian Prime being shuffled into the deck because you can get it for 7 instead of 9.
Yeah. That is true. Very unusual. However, that is not applicable right now for Luna. For Thunder, we did talk about that dynamic where Solarian got shuffled in, and the Font of Power doesn't actually give you full value. And so Thunder doesn't play the Font of Power. Yeah, it gets pretty clunky. But, you know, even though that Mask of Cthulhu burned, it was a 7 mana or 6 mana Pyroblast. Equivalent, at least. Luna does have the ability to now take the board.
Yeah, and these outcomes, again, are not bad for Luna. She's gaining a lot of health with the Plague and now the Siphon Soul, but it's not enough. While Thunder is just going to keep drawing and drawing and drawing, the burn will get there.
Germination. These are... I mean, these are
decent
cards to play. Yeah. I mean, 1 mana, 3/6, 1 elemental with Taunt. Not bad, especially your opponent just used Flame Strike. You can kind of tell that Luna herself doesn't actually have a lot of momentum going into this. Thunder gonna draw more and Cannon Slow before the Refreshing Spring Water.
Disgusting. Oh!
More Spring Water?
This thirst just cannot be quenched.
Some bottled Fiji coming in to Thunder's hand. Just drawing non-stop. Refreshing Spring Water allows Thunder to draw 2 cards from his deck. Finds a Pexus Blast with no activation ability because still does not have Solarian Prime in the hand.
Combustion again. Yeah, you can just clear the board.
3 combustions.
This is close. This is still really close. Luna has some very decent draws. You know, she has a bunch of Librams of Hope in her deck with the Encounters Flow into Deck of Lunacy, guaranteeing you that the only 9 mana spells are Librams of Hope. But she's got to find them soon.
Well, I guess trading 3 mana for 3 mana. Luna has nothing else really going for her. Sugar Elemental is something. Thunder draws Ruined Orb. He just keeps drawing multiple copies of the same card. Combustion, Ruined Orb, Refreshing Spring Water.
I wouldn't mind starting Font of Power. There's a few spell damage options that could have upped your damage, but Mask of Cthulhu off the Discover is insane. Now we're looking for that spell damage.
Yeah. Pretty decent chance for an opportunity to lethal in the next 2 turns here from Thunder.
I don't think Luna could afford another brick here. This is the time to get it.
The worst part about the situation is Luna does have heal to get out of the range, but has no minions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a minion.
That is a minion. Although a minion summons from this Netherwind portal, does it not?
Okay, that's a good outcome.
All right. Ain't alive? And his Stormstrike Fireball? Wait. Now, is Luna the one with the 2-turn lethal setup?
That turned around very, very fast. I didn't actually expect it to come quite that quickly, but the Apexis Blast was absolutely huge, but fireball off the top means that even with a very nice setup for lethal there from Luna, it's not enough in the end.
No minion, no problem. Apexis Blast just finishes the game. Incidentally, Thund3r may have given an opportunity for Luna to be bailed out. I like that Luna set it up just in case she draw Mask of Cthulhu. No need to hold Fireball for the surprise. A pretty hotly contested mage game back and forth that was very close. And I think Thund3r handled himself very well, despite the fact that he almost completely got, scammed by the deck of lunacy shenanigans. But I think that's part of the nature of the beast. Sometimes you get really insane stuff, anything from the Grand Slam to Libram of Hope, and then sometimes you get Deck of Chaos and Siphon Soul in a matchup where no minions are really being played. And I think that's kind of the live and die nature by what this deck tries to do.
Tough one for Luna to have to stomach on that one. But I think that with the one question being really in that game, should she have gone for the Deck of Lunacy? I think it was still the correct decision to go for. Like, even if we just look at Deck of Chaos, I think it's 4 out of the 7 6-cost spells at the moment draw you cards. It's only Deck of Chaos that is the true absolute disaster, with most of them just being good, even if you hit runic carvings. It's an unfortunate outcome there, but probably the correct way to go. And it means that now she, of course, gets another shot at the mage, this time against this very new variant of Paladin that has been taking ladder by storm. It's aggro buff Paladin, very, very different from the Secret and Libram variants that we've seen before, that basically just relies on the insanely powerful buff cards that Paladin has available. Blessing of Kings still, after all this time, is a beefy card, in addition to the insane Hand of Adal and very, very powerful Blessing of Authority. You just realize, hey, if I play a bunch of Death Rattle minions in my deck, it's very hard for them to clear, and I'm likely to hit something, and then you just hit them for a lot of damage. It's a cool iteration of Paladin that we're seeing here, and I think a very, very welcome inclusion to any lineup.
Very much so. I think a lot of people talk about Secret Paladin for a while. Libram Paladin, of course, still in the mix. And despite all of that, Paladin is still refining and getting better. Nerubian Eggs have hit the deck lists and popularity. Some people are now starting to tech in Terran Gorfine to get stronger activations because it makes the eggs a little bit less dead if you don't draw your buffs immediately, because as we all know, it feels really bad to have that egg stranded, and why some decks don't like that. But overall, I'm pretty happy that this variation of Paladin seems to be at least being worked upon. Whether or not it's a candidate for upcoming balance changes, we're not exactly sure, but it is one of the most powerful decks for a reason. Although looking at Thund3r's hand, he wants to have a faster start than that. The only first playable card is Mancrick. Does pick up a Nerubian Egg, but kind of like what we're talking about, we'll have to wait for a long time to activate that.
Yeah, and the real bane of not only a Nerubian Egg, but this deck in general, is just the Devolving Missiles in Luna's hand. It is disgusting if you go 2 all-in on 1 minion and just get it devolved down to a 1 or even 0 drop in this instance with the Egg. It's a crucial card to find, and very much correctly being kept in the mulligan by Luna. It's really just the rest of her hand now that is starting to look very, very ugly. Yuck. Yeah, just, the ring tosses themselves aren't bad against Paladin, but it's just very expensive. So that's part of the issue here. Luna picks up Mask of Cthulhu. That doesn't really help.
I wonder.
You coin Fireball the Mancrick? Like, if you're expecting a buff next turn, which is reasonable with Blessing of Kings, Hand of Adal, a bunch of stuff available, you want to isolate it for the Devolving Missiles. It hurts, but I think this is correct.
Yeah. Fireball is rarely used to win the game the way you would imagine it. Luna sees that this Hand of Adal is being played with the second Nerubian Egg. This is exactly what she was holding the Devolving Missiles for. I mean, she's got to feel happy about it. Now just have to hope that Devolving Missiles doesn't grieve her by just choosing to hit the same target 3 times, although it would be quite poetic to do the same exact thing as what happened to Thund3r in the second game that we were watching, or second game of the series, first game we were watching.
I do want to say as well that I absolutely love this play from Thund3r to go second Nerubian Egg plus Hand of Adal instead of the kings he just picked up, because a card has been kept in Luna's hand that hasn't been played until this point. It's basically always Devolving Missiles, because if it's not Incanter's Flow, it can't really be anything else in this matchup. And so he realizes that even if Devolving Missiles comes down on both these minions, she can't ping them both, so one of them is quite likely to be able to stick around for the Blessing of Authority next turn. So I think this was a great way to make it as likely as possible that something stays on the board.
Interesting choice from Luna. Doesn't end up pulling the trigger on Devolving Missiles. Ends up playing the Ring Toss instead. Devolving Missiles, I mean, it's pretty clear. Luna wants a better opportunity to do that. On turn 5, Blessing of Authority can't go to the face, so if Thund3r chooses to just set it up preemptively to be mana efficient and his hand is full of buffs, she can get even greater value. Good recognition of the situation. 2 life isn't that big of a deal to pay, especially if she was able to hit an Ice Barrier, for example. Another Devolving Missiles.
That's huge. I'm kind of surprised that she started with Rune Orb. It feels like that's 2 very, very useful mana that's just eaten up right at the start now. She doesn't even pick Devolving Missiles.
Come in, come in.
Now that's interesting.
Insane.
It does seem particularly insane, but she chose Font of Power so that she could have minions to play. Yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence about that too, in the sense that I don't think I necessarily understand immediately what she was thinking about when she saw the second Devolving Missiles, but I guess in her mind she feels like with Flame Strike, with Devolving Missiles, with 2 Brain Freezes, she has enough removal, and maybe she just wants to find a way to start threatening the Paladin.
Right, like, I get what she's going for here. It makes sense that you would want to get minions online. It's not wrong at all. It's just kind of very much against what my initial instincts were. You know, which is to say, you just want as good removal as possible. You'll be able to, very likely, if you can just get a big swing with Devolving and Mask of Cthulhu, burn them out at some point in the next few turns. But either way, now the Blessing of Authority does come down. No secrets in the way to get rid of this one. And unless it's a very, very accurate Devolving Missiles, this board is going nowhere.
Well, she can manipulate the board through the Hero Power and Brain Freezes first.
True, yeah.
But yes, it still needs to hit the right target, and there's a chance that it would miss, because Luna, I don't think, can remove everything.
It's pretty clean, actually. She can go ping, Brain Freeze, Devolving, and then end with Combustion on, hopefully, what are 2 0 or 1 drops.
Yes, it's just that there's a chance that the Devolving Missiles misses here. It's not high, but chance.
Whoa, that is clutch.
Yeah, that's really big. The Divine Shield, pretty huge here.
The Divine Shield is insane. If that was any other 1-drop that didn't have a Divine Shield, apart from, I guess, Soul Tongue Ashbound, Soul Tongue Ashbound, the 1/4, whatever it is, it would have meant a clear board, which means none of these buffs get to go on minions. But now the amount of damage is absurd.
2 plus 6 is 8, plus Blessing of Might is 12. Plus the Underlight Angler over 2 turns is 6.
That's it. Sets it up.
Oh my. It looked pretty good for Luna all of a sudden when she was able to answer the board Devolving Missiles.
And again,
Can the Ring Toss?
I do still have slight questions, because I appreciate that if Thund3r doesn't have buffs in hand, what she did was better. But even with the Divine Shield there, she could have gone ping on the 1/1 and then, on the Murloc, and then Brain Freeze the Argent Squire. Even if it doesn't kill it, it stops it attacking face. Whereas this, obviously this was about as bad as it could possibly have gone. But it's a dreadful outcome for Luna.
Yeah, this is looking real bad. And I think Luna is dead. She concedes. It's a tie series. What looked like to be a pretty good spot for Luna being up 2-0 is now being tied 2-2. And the underdog from Thund3r looking to take a big name down in Swiss round 1. I mean, we look upon that game with reflection. Luna had several opportunities to try and answer the board. And the fact that, the game ended, she still had things like the second brain freeze and flame strike in the hand, that's got to feel pretty bad.
I apologize as well at the end. That one was not wrong. She'd already used the ping on that turn. I'm just being an idiot. The Divine Shield was really just the kicker there. And so if you can't clear the entire board, you may as well just go with the draw at the end. I still stand by the talking about devolving missiles not being picked earlier, but upon looking back with not being an idiot goggles when we get to see the replay, I will say that I think Luna's last couple turns there were very much the best you can make out of a bad situation.
Yeah, I would say that there was merit to at least removing one minion, because we do know the threat of conviction, and I don't know how many times it's happened to you, Derek, but dying from a double conviction situation with a couple of 1-1s, it's happened to me more times than I'd like to admit. So it's one of those situations where I think Luna could go back and maybe debate with herself. She's very self-critical, which is what makes her such a strong player. But going to the final game is going to be a Rogue versus Mage. We expect to see that matchup a lot throughout the week, and it might be the defining matchup if people are going to be banning Priest like Luna and Thund3r did prior to the series. It is a miracle Rogue, attributed to the fact that the field contact is going to draw you a ton of cards. Hopefully you can discount it and combo go off with the Alex Straza and the Tenwu of the Red Smoke in the late stages of the game. But as we saw, it's not exactly the card that you would necessarily need. There's a lot of options at your disposal with Cult Neophyte and the pressure that you can generate through Janus and Kazakis. So I do expect to see Thund3r to potentially find some inspiration, right? It's always funny when a player takes an unexplored line that people aren't exactly sure about. It works out, then the matchup switches later in the series, and maybe Thund3r plays the exact same way that he saw Luna do.
Well, we'll have to see. A reasonable starting hand here for Luna. I'm probably just holding on to one font of power. I don't think devolving missiles is quite crucial enough in this matchup when compared to Incanter's Flow. That is what you are looking for here, as it just makes your whole deck so fluid. You hit your flow state, and then you're able to burn the Rogue, hopefully, out of the game before anything can get going. But already having said that, look at this starting hand for Thund3r. 2, 3, 4 into 5 with the Golem as well. It's a perfect curve.
Yes. It is very close to ideal. Cult Neophyte, quite troublesome, but it's okay for Luna. Onto power. Gives you 3 minions. Primordial Study gives you 1.
Yeah, I am looking at Font of Power. I'm just wondering whether it's going to be Deck of Lunacy next turn, because that costs 3 when we factor out the Cult Neophyte making it cost 1 more on this turn. And even without any card draw in hand, it's pretty good against Rogue to get the Deck of Lunacy online.
Time runs out on me.
This might be a nod to the fact that Luna might just need the ability to use spell damage to swing the board.
Yeah.
But you clearly put a lot of thought into it. Ends up picking out the Blade Mage Thanos, and I agree. I think her hand is looking very poor, so finding card draw might be the solution here. This is starting to become quite scary for Luna, especially when she sees Kazakis come down next turn. Deck of Lunacy, round 2? Oh my goodness, Derek, what is happening?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Luna C, Luna play.
Luna love.
Whatever the first option was that was picked there, I saw copy on the second one, which is the perfect outcome for Thund3r to keep the pressure rolling and curving into Janus on 6. This is literally the best hand that you can get as Rogue.
Whoa. Okay.
That's good, though. That's huge.
Yeah? That's huge to just make sure that you're dealing with 2 minions, because if Luna's only killing 1, she's taking 6 per turn plus whatever Thunder develops. Not to mention Greater Golem could summon multiple copies of the same minion. Oh my goodness, Derek.
Clutch secret though as well. Obviously you can't interact right now, but just being able to maybe fight back against this. Again, that Libram of Hope is a huge pickup against this onslaught of damage. But with 10 already coming in, there's the potential for just straight up lethal on the next turn for Thunder.
Thunder's aware of this. Maybe a flurry pickup?
Ooh. Counterspell? Quite like the look of that.
Yeah, counterspell to stop a Wicked Staff from just ending the game prematurely.
Yeah. You are just afraid of Jandice on the following turn. Like, if you're Luna here, you must be thinking, they have to brick on something. Like, they can't just have the perfect card every single turn. Surely they can't have Jandice as well. But she would be wrong in that assumption.
While Shadow Step is normally, you know, insanely powerful through combining it with the Golems or Jandice, we do know that counter spell is up. Regardless, Thunder's going to attack. Sees no ice barrier.
Maybe it's not Jandice in the end, though. You can go Brain Freeze on the 5/5. If it's not counterspell, that's just a good play you've made to freeze it. And if it is counterspell, you can then Shadow Step your Golem and then just get 2 more stealth 5/5s. Like, it's so difficult for Mage to interact with that unless they got exactly... Oh, you know that they can't have Flame Strike in hand. They've played every spell that has been reduced by Encounters Flow, if you've been keeping track. Oh. Never mind.
Rainbow. Making the minions super sticky.
Yeah, that'll do. Don't trigger the potential Netherwind portal just to make it as difficult as possible to answer this board, because now with the best answer for Luna being that Libram of Hope as I see it, it's a shaky plan at best.
Thinking if there's any other play besides the Libram of Hope to heal and summon an 8/8 Guardian with Divine Shield and Taunt. I'm thinking of Firebrand can find a way here, but it's just, it has to be the Libram. It's the most efficient play. It's exactly what Luna's looking for.
Okay. Oh, it's actually pretty sick. This animated broomstick can be used to rush the Greybow, to summon it like twice on this turn. If you attack him with the Jandice, rush the Greybow, and then rush again. That's so sick. I think you attack first. Yeah, he sees it.
I was thinking if there were any additional things from Thunder to potentially look for lethal here, but I think the Secret Passage is not worth it relative to what he could be doing with this turn.
Yeah.
Powerful plays coming out from Thunder from the get-go.
Yeah, just making sure these 5/5s get to attack face. Why not?
Give me that. Look what I want.
Really well done here by Thunder, and now with All In and Secret Passage in hand, it's pretty much whether or not Luna has Flame Strike, and we know she does not.
And even if she does, there's still just a Greybow for lethal. Even that would not get the job done here for Luna. There's just nothing.
Okay, can Ring Toss potentially buy enough crucial time here?
You can Firebrand, copy it, and then Pride's Fury to deal 8 damage.
You get burned.
Yeah, that's fair. Germination works similarly to Forest Warden Omu, where you still retain that Spell Burst effect after the fact. So great little recognition of some card interactions there from Luna. I was thinking about that at first.
It's a cool spot. But there is a very high chance.
That's it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Just be able to push through. Need to kill off one of the golems. And Thunder with the reverse sweep over Luna. Really good play, although the hand certainly was very powerful and almost nobody could stop that. Especially a mage that's playing, we kind of talked about the deck of Lunacy, just a little bit slower, giving you just a little bit less breathing room. And the way that Luna was drawing inevitably would start swinging back the board. Rogue was out of resources and would need secret patches to bail them out, having played their best cards. Outside of Alex, Straza, and the combo with Tenmu, Thunder basically threw all of his best cards at Luna turn after turn, and Luna still almost checked it. So even though Thunder looked like it was kind of a blowout in terms of the life total, it was very close to things getting a little bit out of hand. If Luna just had one board wipe, that could have been the end for Thunder in the series.
Yeah, I think I was maybe a little bit harsh on Luna at the start there with some of her decisions. Again, I consider Luna to be up there in like the top 10